TBC healers are actually pretty unique compared to other expansions. Every healer here brings key jobs, clutch cooldowns, raid wide or party wide buffs that make it really hard to drop them as the expansions go on. Not that we don't try to drop healers, but you know, let's just kick things off. Let's get straight into it, and let's talk about the class that is everyone's talking point at the minute. Shaman. With the anniversary changes and Bloodlust or Heroism going raid wide, there's a lot of discussion flying around right now. A bunch of shamans that I talk to and play with, they're suddenly worried about no-lifing the pre-patch, and it might not be worth their time anymore. The shamans might not be as mandatory as they remember. But yeah, shamans are still gonna be god tier. Let's just talk about Resto Shaman specifically in this video. Outside of their raw healing, let's talk about mana first off. Mana in TBC is an insanely valuable resource, not just for healers, but for DPS too. Your damage absolutely tanks if you're mana starved. Hunters and mages lose their mind if you don't have your mana spring totem down in their party, because they're just out damage. It would depend on how long the fights are, of course, but you have to remember a hunter's main cooldown potion generally is mana potion. And back then it wasn't uncommon at all for us as raid leaders to shuffle our resto shamans around between groups to funnel mana tide to the people who need it most. Again, DPS wise, usually going to be the mages. It's very rare that healers need it. So you're always, mana is like this extra damage resource to a lot of players, and it's only in emergencies that healers will actually see benefit from that. I'm wondering if party shuffling will still be a thing now that heroism is bloodlust. Heroism is raid wide. It'll be interesting to see what guys do. I think it still will happen. You've then got another great spell in the way of Earth Shield. On tanks, it's basically a mini heal. Every time they get hit, they get a heal. It's awesome. It's a bit underrated, but there is a pretty interesting way to use it. Slap it on yourself or maybe on a caster DPS, and it prevents pushbacks. When used properly, this can be very valuable. I remember fights like Void Reaver seeing the shamans put it on themselves because they can heal without getting interrupted all the time. Very strong, very strong, especially if you're not in a group with a paladin healer. So you don't have consecration aura. Yeah, so there's one of those things, you got to use your brain to actually get the best out of these spells, especially if you're the shaman who isn't putting Earth Shield on the tank specifically. So we're 3 spells in, and already Resto Shaman has tons of decision making baked into what they need to do. People will tell you that shamans just spam chill heal, and late game it can kind of feel like that, but the choices you make are what separate a good shaman from a bad one. I've raid led TBC for years, and the amount of infighting and whispers and politics that I'll receive in order to get the right shaman into your group. DPS will be whispering me up, telling me they want a certain shaman in their party because the other shaman's a fucking spud. Yeah. So be that guy, don't be the other guy. Fingers crossed Blizzard let us boost them in the launch, in the pre-patch, and hopefully I can get all 5 of my shamans, because I still think 5 shamans in TBC are going to be mandatory. I'm a Lions personally, so it is a bit of an uphill battle to get our shamans, and please Blizzard, the boost would be amazing if you just have Dream all have boosts. It's our 3rd time round. We don't need the time to level. We're just going to boost everybody. No, they are. What we're going to do is we're going to mob tag all of them up. We're not going to boost them because you ban boosting. Thank you for that, Blizzard. That's amazing. I do like that change. I'm not taking the piss there. One more thing I will say about shamans before I end up here is dual spec for shamans is going to be ridiculously fun. Being able to swap roles for specific fights is huge. Shamans actually get to coordinate each week about which healer they want to drop, so they can go DPS, they can spice things up, so they're not always just being a chain heal bot. especially at that end game, you know, getting access to maybe an extra Ellie Shaman or an extra enhancement Shaman is going to be beautiful, depending on the fight, of course. My Auspex Shaman, personally, that I want to see the most is going to be my Resto Shaman that I put in my Hunter group, and allowing him to go enhancement when we just want extra pump is going to be super fun. Alright, I'll end that one there with the Shamans. Let's move on to Paladin. The Holy Paladin is the backbone of the entire healing camp. They're practically designed to keep a tank alive. It's literally what they're born for. Sadly for Shamans, they're basically still playing vanilla. While everyone else got new shiny spells, you got Holy Shock, which so good you'll almost never press it. Unless you're moving and you're forced to. Just like in Nax, you're kind of just told to shut the fuck up and heal the tank, bro. You know, you've got your lot in life. And yeah, that sounds bad, but raids become infinitely harder without a Holy Paladin. Someone in your roster actually wants to main one, shower them with love and loot, because fights like Brutalis without one of these mad lads is... yeah, good luck. Have fun. In our roster, I want to have 3 Paladins in total. That's where, you know, getting all their utility matters. You know, you get all their blessings, their seals, their judgments, all the good stuff. And your Holy Paladin would usually be assigned to, well, what I'll assign my guy to is Judgment of Light. And then, you know, each of your Paladins will have their own seal, their own buff, etc. But Holy Paladin, I think they have a place in the raid for sure. Holy Paladin specifically, what they have also is a spell called Illumination. This gives you back mana when you crit, and it's super mental. It's actually mental. When combined with spells like Divine Favor or Divine Illumination, you can literally gain mana while healing. You're spending less mana than you're getting back. They're absolute machines. They're healing machines. And of course, in TBC, your main job, keep the tank alive. Kind of like your entire personality or persona in this game at the moment. You got your one main tank, you keep that motherfucker up. One last thing. There's also hype around Holy Paladin and their infinite mana when paired with the Shadow Priest. Obviously what you hear all the time is like, you've got your mana battery, you've got your Paladin and their infinite mana. Woohoo. Personally, I think that's a bit overrated. Sorry lads, but unless you're actually bone dry I'm not giving you my Shadow Priest in my group. And they're always going to be in a DPS group, maybe the Prop Paladin group. You're not getting them unless you're literally and we are required to get you mana to get through the end of the fight. But guys, at the end of the day, at least one Holy Paladin is mandatory for any serious TBC camp. Full stop. Resto Druid. Resto Druids are mandatory, but they are probably the most flexible healer in TBC. They've got a couple of different playstyles, including the famous Dream State, that all the sweaty high-end players won't shut up about. You know, but me, I'm probably going to run a balanced Druid, so as a raid leader, I'll always prefer your classic free spec. You know, you're just your normal, run-of-the-mill, standard healing spec that most people will play in TBC. In tree form, you become an insanely reliable tank support healer. You smooth out all the incoming damage with your hots, and you basically play a co-pilot to your Holy Paladin, keeping our most important players alive. Where Paladins excel in keeping one tank glued together, your Druid shines when multiple tanks are getting trucked. Certain DPS are looking at you, such as Warlocks, that put pressure on the raid with their own life taps, but majoritively you're going to be, you know, Life Bloom in your tanks. Life Bloom in TBC basically replaces your Rejuvenation. There's no cooldown on it, there's no limit to it, you just pop it out as much as you want. You're going to be rolling Life Blooms non-stop. You'll put Rejuve out, of course, but usually it's on heavy damage, and you'll use Regrowth as your like big chunky heal, like your flash heal for any base player. That's your emergency heal basically. But again, it has a hot on it, so like just stacking them up on the tank, taking heavy damage is always valuable. But where you'll truly see a Resto Druid's worth will be in fights like High King Mulgore. Multiple tanks going on, multiple tanking happening, and all of them will get your Life Bloom. Every tank, including your janky DPS tanks like your mages, your warlocks in that fight, you'll just blanket all of them with hots and keep everybody stable. And as long as the raid's looking good, you've done your job. Tree isn't for players who want to pad. It's not, the healing you're going to get is the healing that's available to you. There's no sniping healing, It's for players who want to keep your brothers safe and keep fights risk-free. I mean it when they're just a safety blanket among the raid. You can also bring, the usual Druid utility. You've got Battle Res, you've got Innervate. But something a lot of players forget about is that Tree Form itself has a party-wide buff. If you're in a party with a tree, healing received goes up by 25%. Which, fucking mental. That's crazy. Like, if you could just have a 25% buff over 4 players, including yourself, mental. It's not always mandatory, but I do love sticking my my paladin tank with a tree at times. Especially if he's taking heavy damage or he's got to pull a big pack. You just put the tree in his party. Or fights like Brutalis, where the tank's getting trucked. The Eridor twins is a big one. Not always mandatory, but I do love I do love the idea that you don't just put everyone in a party and that's the end of the days, but you've got these choices to make. You've got a tree. I'll usually have them in the healing party, but if I need them, I can move them up, put them into a tank party. That tank's getting trucked. Amazing. Massive buff. 25% extra healing taken is crazy when needed. You want a Resto Druid in your group. Whether you're hardcore and you're going to go Dream State, or whether you're like a normal everyday guild and you want that free. There are other specs for Druid as well, but these are the two that I think are going to be the most prevalent this time in TBC. Priest. If you've watched my channel at all, you already know I'm a Priest main. In TBC, that's not changing. I'll always lean into the sports style builds, personally like IDS Priest, that were you pick up Improved Divine Spirit and then you dive into the Holy Tree as much as you can. This build is basically a tank healer kind of tree, has a massive raid buff strapped to it. You can also go full discipline, power infusion and pain suppression, which is honestly a lot more rare in TBC, but it might be you might see a lot more of it now that we have dual spec and we can actually change our spec based on our fights, fight by fight basis. So if you want to get access to more DPS, maybe you'll go down the tree and get power infusion. Maybe you want a big tank CD, you'll have pain suppression. Awesome, sweet. But the main spec that most people will play will just be full holy circle of healing. It's honestly, it's a monster. The spec itself is an absolute fiend. It's crazy. Circle of healing is cracked in TBC. There's no cooldown on it. Heals the whole party, and if you've got mana, you can spam this motherfucker all day. Like, you're literally a circle of healing all day. Bum, 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 hitting the groups all day. Any AoE that's happening, circle of healing the whole fucking team. It's combined with what we're used to with Priest, as usual utility, inspiration, improved renew, prayer of healing when prayer of healing absolutely trucks as well when there's a lot of AoE happening. Prayer of mending, which you're going to fire out all the time on the tanks, and it'll AoE heal as well for flip's sake. Well, it'll bounce during AoE. The ability to literally keep healing for a second after you die, like you're even dead and you're the best healer for a minute, But Holy Priest is going to be your it's going to be your main HPS healer in TBC. On any fight with even a whiff of AoE, your Holy Priest is just going to dominate. For the whole expansion, it's not going to change. From Karazhan all the way through Sunwell, your priests are just going to be rocking the healing meter. And I'm not saying that they're the best. I'm just saying that that's their job. Like, I would rather go to a raid without a priest than a paladin, personally. But you get some AoE on the go, you could stack priests all day. Unreal. You really can't sleep on a priest first tilting. Sometimes you even play like a mini druid. You just blanket the raid with renews, especially when there's like a lot of tank damage going on. So like priests kind of can fit in anywhere, can do any job, which is cool. They're pretty strong, but honestly, again, like what I just said there, like you could just take as many priests as you want. They can fit in anywhere, you know? You don't have, let's pretend you don't have a paladin. And you're, instead of taking a paladin, you're going to take a second priest. I'd make that second priest go IDS. You know, you get access to, you know, you get your spirit buff, cool. But then you've also got a priest that's not just trucking circle of healings out all day long. You've got a priest that's going to look after the tank. Because it's, you know, it's where they're going to see the majority of their healing. You know, with 5 mans, you'll actually see, as a priest, you got a utility for days. In heroic dungeons, priests have fucking everything, you know? You need to survive that one boss that kills your tank in millisecond. You've got pain suppression. It has everything. It is your most versatile priest in the game. And as someone who's mained it, I'd say the only downfall of a priest is not even the priest itself, it's the gear. The early days as a priest, I was wearing mostly Nax gear and the Mooncloth set. None of this shit has any stamina, has nothing. I was doing a GDKP in Serpent Shrine Cavern, and at a certain point during the fight, Lady Vash was an AoE. And that AoE was more than my health pool. Oh, including having a power word shield on me and being forced to be put into the warrior group for the extra health shout, I was surviving with 2% health. So don't fall into traps like that. You might need to wear a little bit more stamina. I wasn't doing that. Fuck that. No way. I'm not going to reduce my healing for, you know, to stay alive. Anyway, guys, priest, brilliant. You need one. You need all these classes that I've been talking about. Like, there's no way you don't. You need one of each or multiple of some. Alright guys, I'm gonna wrap this video up, and in conclusion, at the end of the day, what I will do, what my plan is going forward is, once I've got through this sort of like these roles, and I've done DPS and I've done the other classes, I will do a comp video where you see how many of each healer I'm going to put in and what group they'll be in, etc., where they work together, you know. And what I will say based on work together is, healing is a job where if you stay in your lane, do your job, you know, you work as a team, you're not sniping each other, your raid team will absolutely succeed. Whenever I talk like this, people are always asking me like, but McNulty, like, how do I parse then? Like, mate, parsing as a healer has always been a team game. Drop healers, do degen shit, and suddenly you can parse like a king. You know, you can get 99s for days. You need to be a team. Like, if I need to parse, I need someone else to stop healing or go DPS. It's always been the way. It's always been how it goes. You want to paladin the shaman, then you know you can. There's also things you can do, like throw down healing spring instead of doing your mana one. You know, it's not rocket science. And when you do see like big massive healing parses, like 99s that are like way above, usually they've been cheesed. You know, on a paladin you can tell your druid to ignore the warlocks, and he can just, you know, people do silly shit with parsing. If you want to have a high parse as a healer, you can have all of your warlocks. Let's say 4 warlocks. You can have all of them go into the fight with 1% mana, and then as soon as the fight starts, you just top them up. There you go. You've just got 10% on your parse. Scratch, you're amazing. My point is, you know, if you're a team and you're doing well enough to think about parsing, you're already in a good place, to be honest with you. If you can do shit like that, it's great. This video isn't about that. It's about getting you into the right place, the right classes, the right healer distribution need in TBC. You don't need this video if you're doing shit like that. You know, I didn't dive too deep into the spells in this video, because to be honest with you, if you have these classes, you'll never have an issue. But if you're missing something, let's say your comp has no paladin, as I said earlier, you can maybe throw an IDS priest for, and that's another magic dispel. And, you know, and he's a bit more of a tank healer, so there's always ways to shuffle things around and adjust. Again, I'll cover that more in another video when I talk about my roster. But anyway, lads, that's a bit of a long one today. Thank you for listening. Next time we are going to talk about physical DPS. I'm going to do melee DPS, and I'm going to put hunters into that video as well. But make sure to subscribe, drop a comment, all the good stuff, and peace.